Good day. Footfall was a classic of the highest order, but it was a product of the 1980s. And like with so many things from that era, it had to be remade for a modern audience. Thankfully, unlike with other remakes, this was done by a true fan of sci-fi literature. Enter Christopher Nuttall, a writer from the UK. He is a rather prolific wordsmith that writes both SF and fantasy works, and it's definitely one of us. One of us. Invasion was the first Nuttall novel that I ever read, mainly because I liked the cover. And that's literally the only reason I picked it up. But what I found was nothing short of awesome. Essentially what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is Footfall in the 21st century. So the novel begins with aliens being discovered entering the solar system. Their ship is absolutely massive, and when it enters Earth's orbit, it splits into two parts, a war section and a civilian section. This novel, unlike with Footfall, gives you more numbers to work with. The civilian section has 1 billion people living on it, meaning if it ever landed on Earth, they would become a massive regional power, and these high-level political concepts play a big role in the novel. In Footfall, politics were a bit easier, as it was indeed the Cold War. Back then, it was the big good US versus the evil empire, the Soviet Union. Here in this 21st century novel, now we have concepts like hearts and minds to be worried about, and the novel focuses on what regular people would do in certain high-stress situations. How loyal would you be to humanity if you were starving in some ruins? So as you would expect, the aliens attack and do much the same as the Footfall Xenos. They hit roads, bridges, dams, and power stations with kinetic energy weapons. The first strike seen in this novel hits a whole hell of a lot harder than in Footfall. In Footfall, you had an 80s-styled 90s, so consumer electronics weren't all that common, and society was much less reliant upon electronics and computers. Whereas in the 21st century, yeah, you can see where this is going. Society takes a massive hit from this first strike, because it really is hard to live without your bloody smartphone, and unless you have a working power grid, yeah, that phone battery is going to die pretty bloody fast. One must also keep in mind that this novel takes place in the early 21st century, meaning it's a post-Cold War world. In the 80s, 90s, there were of course more troops, more vehicles, more missiles and guns and things of that nature. In this 21st century novel, there's a lot less of everything. But one cool thing does happen in the course of the novel. The US military uses a laser-armed Boeing 747 to shoot down a few alien spacecraft, but it doesn't get to kill that many aliens and is shot down pretty quickly. The aliens physically invade and land boots on the ground in a number of different places, including Texas, and in the novel, Houston is destroyed by the horrid xenogens. So yeah, that means I am dead in this universe. Or maybe I got out. No, I probably would have fought to the last, sadly. So yeah, thanks for that, Nuttall. You bloody well killed me off. Worst book ever. Never read it. But, that aside, Texas also gets the short shift when the governor of Texas surrenders to the Xenos. Really, Christopher? Really? I get the feeling that Greg Abbott didn't win the governorship in this universe, because if he had, I imagine he would have died with a 1911 in each hand and a snarl on his lips. The Xenos in this particular novel are humanoid, and they are described as having reddish skin and weird working legs. They look kind of like us and think kind of like us, and are on a religious crusade across the stars, ISIS style. And the novel goes into detail about their mindset and different political makeup. Thankfully, there are no sappy romances to be found between human and aliens. This is a much more morally gray novel than Footfall, and it represents the changing times. There are humans that work with aliens so that they do not starve to death, and it shows that in war things can definitely be grayer than you would imagine. The characters are fairly stock, but fun all around, and there is a decent romance between two main characters that, while predictable, is still enjoyable nonetheless. Oftentimes, tropes are popular for a reason. As stated earlier, the aliens are more or less space ISIS, and as you would expect, they're not quite as nuanced as the Soviet Union analog aliens from Footfall. This is really due to changing times and changing expectations. When Footfall was written, the main enemy was the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union was a little more nuanced than, say, ISIS. The Soviet Union wanted to increase its influence and increase its wealth. This is something just about anyone can understand. The Footfall aliens wanted to take over the Earth to have access to Earth's natural resources. Makes sense, right? Well, the invasion aliens want to take over the Earth to convert everyone into their alien religion. And they will not tolerate any other religions whatsoever. In fact, they go as far to destroy houses of worship and will kill any member of the clergy. That's why they went across the stars. Really, that makes a lot less sense than resource exploitation. And really, this represents the modern era. Our main enemy today is ISIS and their complete and total insanity. Invasion works very well as an update to Footfall and sticks with what works while giving it a fresh coat of paint. The ending is not quite as cool as Footfall's, but follows in its footsteps very well and is pretty damn good in its own right. And so, I am GeneralLotz, wishing you good learning experience and good second chance, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed my review of Invasion, please consider subscribing. If you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue to bring you these awesome novel reviews.